This is the story of two friends from college who came up with a crazy idea of inviting the greatest thinkers on earth to prove God in just 500 words. They didn't expect to get any responses, but they did. Ambassadors, senators, movie stars, captains of industry, scientists, media personalities, and more. They put 70 one-page essays in a book, which became a bestseller on Amazon, called Elevator Pitches for God.
We don't have to check their inventory. We have to check our inventory. I like a top 10 list, a juicy long list of the top 10 things that you really value and want. After 10, the truth is, it's not that it doesn't matter, but if you don't get your top 10, we don't care what's 11 through 15. Even if it satisfies you, it doesn't matter if 1 through 10 is not satisfying. So we need 1 through 10 to have a degree of satisfaction.
Welcome to the podcast, the Elevator Pitches for God podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have with us one of the authors of the book, Elevator Pitches for God. She's one of the 70 authors who honored us by writing a one-page essay on proof of God. And we have with us Aliza Ben Shalom. She is amazing. And Alisa, you don't have to respond to any of this, but I'm going to go on for just a couple minutes. Okay, so just hang on. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to sit back and enjoy the moment. Go
just
for it.
Just sit back and you don't have to say a thing. I'm just going to read this. So she's really well known for the Netflix special. What's it called? The Jewish Matchmaker. I want to make sure I get it right.
Jewish matchmaking. Jewish matchmaking.
Okay. And if you haven't seen this, I was riveted A to Z. There's no more interesting topic in life, I think, than this topic: dating, love, romance. Is there going to be any? And am I going to be involved in it? You know, it's just the whole thing is great. She's a dating coach. She's an author. She's a matchmaker. She's a speaker. And it says soulmate clarity expert. We can unpack that later. Who empowers marriage-minded singles to find and identify the one. She was featured on The Matchmaker season 1 and the new as we mentioned, Netflix. Okay, so she's written for Get Real, Get Married, a guide to get people over their hurdles and under the chuppah. By the way, our Rabbi Marcus, has like 10 of those books, which is great, in his office.
That's so funny. Wait, I'm going to tell you, there's a surprise because it wasn't out when the book came out, but I have a new book called Matchmaker, Find Me a Love That Lasts, and it's coming out in December. It's on pre-sale.
I already ordered it. Yeah. I was like, I'm not, I don't know how many guys are printing, but I want to, everything.
I don't know how many are printing either. If you want one, you should totally grab it. It's
I know, because people don't understand.
We'll talk.
If you order them, right? No, I already got mine. And by the way, this is for married people. This is for divorced people. This is for single people. Heck, invite the kids. Well, you can invite everybody.
It helps everybody because it helps you to make a match. It doesn't matter if you're making your own or somebody else's.
Right. Anyway, this goes on and on. You've successfully led over 200 singles of all ages and affiliations through the steps of engagement. You've been at BBC, NPR, Huffington Post. It goes on and on and on. Oh, you've trained 350 dating coaches. So you're a teacher. Anyway, I want to welcome Aliza Ben Shalom. What an honor.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm ecstatic to be here.
Right. So I wanted to add one more thing. I know this is going on a long time, but I think
okay, go for it.
I'm going to put my personal thing. I think you're charismatic. I think you're so happy all the time, and that you're so uplifting. You're fun. You're funny. You're open-minded, and you're not judgmental, which I love about that. And I think, and by the way, she came to speak in our area. The place was packed, standing room only. And I want to tell you, I was in the front row. I turned around and looked at everyone in the audience, and you could hear a pin drop. And I saw my friends, my old crockety friends, just smiling. Their smiles, I've never seen them smile like this, and they're riveted to you as you were going through. She had people on the stage, and she was going to do some match stuff. It was fantastic. Anyway, I wanted just to add that. And by the way, she has podcasts too. I ran into the Dating Coaches and then Matchmaker, which I was just hearing, which are those cute, like 7-minute things. A guy with an eye falls out. You can't make this stuff up. It was crazy.
That was the craziest story. He goes on to tell her like, oh, I'm missing an eye. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And at the end of the whole story, he's like, no, I was just kidding. Yeah. She's like,
never mind.
That's not funny.
It's not funny. I think everyone tries to be clever. I don't know. That
It's
was
not
just
clever. That if you want to know what's funny and not funny, that's not
that's
funny.
not funny. No, I know funny. I tell my wife all the time, I know funny. Anyway, okay. Before we start, do you want to start talking about your essay at all? I mean, you have a profound lesson, which everyone should know with the onset, which is about God and matchmaking. And why don't you say what you said in your essay so they know?
So the short summary is that matchmaking is really a divine profession. And, God created the world in 6 days and seventh day he rested. And what's he been doing since creation?
That's right.
He's been making matches, right? He's been
Right.
doing the hardest thing in the world is to
Right.
get two different people from two different families in two different worlds and bring them together. And one of the most interesting things that you'll find, by the way, Jewish matchmakers, non-Jewish matchmakers from all over the world, you ask them, like, why are you doing this? And they will tell you, like, it's a calling. And when you say it's a calling, where's it a calling from? It's a calling from above. It's a calling from God to go into this industry, to go into this. It's not a business or a profession, to go into the business of love and to help people find each other. It is something that is, it's not like, oh, you just like doing it or that's nice or that's fun. People feel moved. They feel called to do it where, like, I can't ask me, like, what else do I want to do? There's nothing else I want to do. Could I do something else? I mean, not so happily. It just doesn't, it's not going to move me in the same way. I feel like I must be doing this, that this is something that is critical to sustaining the world.
Yeah, the truth is, I think it's easier to be a brain surgeon than what you do. It really is. I don't
argue with a brain surgeon. My brother-in-law's a brain surgeon, but I think their job is hard too. But yes, definitely keeping a marriage together for a lifetime ranks up there.
Because I know I have single friends, and I always you always try to make a shit, try and set them up, and and this is a great okay. I'm going to talk about stuff in random order. Don't be upset. We're just going to bounce all over.
Go for it.
I think there's some people who are not matchable. What do you think?
So I don't like to play God. So the way that my understanding of the world is in the blueprint of creation, you come into this world, your soulmate comes into this world, you have the potential to meet them. If God forbid you lose a soulmate, you're able to make a new soulmate. How do you make them? By marrying them. You find them and then you marry them. That's how you make yourself a new soulmate.
So you make your soulmate. It's not that there's, ooh, I like that.
By the way, that is one of the big things that we talk about.
You make your soulmate.
You make a soulmate.
Great.
So like, who am I? Like, that's in the blueprint of creation, like, listen, Noah's Ark, right? The animals came 2 by 2. They were paired off also, right? Okay. So who am I to come in and say that somebody's not matchable because I wouldn't think something, or because you don't think something, you don't think they look right, sound right, act right, whatever it is. We see people who get married, fat, skinny, tall, short, wealthy, poor, from all different locations. It doesn't actually matter what they look like, who they are, what they do. People get married. People find their person, they marry them, and in that moment, they make them their soulmate. So who am I to say that somebody can't make that happen? I don't think that's... like you said, that's the non-judgmental side of me. I think it's too judgy, and I don't think it's actually correct to say that somebody can't. There's always a possibility.
There's always a chance. No, there's always hope. There's always hope. There may be no chance, but there's always hope. I think as people get older, I see them, and this is kind of what I was going to say is, I think a person has to want to. They have to have a certain amount of I want a partner. You know what I mean? I hear some people. Well, I'd like to have one.
Right.
Right. You have to want it, kiddo. If you want to get married, have a union, have a soulmate, make your soulmate, you got to want it bad, because it's not easy. And the successful people doing it are sly foxes, and they have a lot of drive, and to do it well, you have to be on your game. And you can't say, oh, I'm just going to accept me the way I am. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up with. A lot of people have this attitude, well, I just, you have to accept me for who I am. And I came out, I was a boy of the 60s, okay? We had feminism. They taught women that men are. They said this. Just say this. I heard on the radio that men are pigs. They were telling all the women this, that you don't. You need a man needs a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. These were the words. I'm not making any of this up.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that
right?
quote.
And then the daughters. Right now, we have the daughters of these women who heard these slogans. And so they've communicated these messages. And I think it's a disaster for women because so many women are like, oh, they have to like me the way I am. And that's not the case. You need to make yourself look pretty. Yeah, there's things you need to do just as the man. You need to.
Well, I think there's like yes and, right? Love me, appreciate me, value me for who I am. And I'm going to continue to become who I need to be. Not just that. And also at the same moment, I am enough. I do enough, right? I am enough. But at the same time, and I will continue to do better, right? It's kind of like we're not static beings. So to say, love me for who I am, okay, I love you for who you are. For everything that you are, I love you. For the things that, your behaviors that aren't so great. I don't love those. I love. The behaviors, not so much.
That's an axiom of Judaism. Very nice. You slipped that in there. It's not you, right? It's your behavior. No, that's great. Right. Hey, look, I'm from, I have Berkeley right across the bay from me. I can throw a rock and hit it, okay? And their attitude is, I'm going to just not shave. I'm going to do everything the way I'm all natural and just love me. You got to love me the way I am with my sloppy shoes and all that kind of thing. And I'm saying that is not going to work. I think if anyone wants to successfully date someone, I think they have to make an effort with their personal appearance.
They would be a good match for somebody else who's in the same category. Again,
really
different people. Yeah, different people from different communities or different places have different values. So somebody who's like-minded is going to value who they are, and they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, great vibe." That works.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on this. I think all guys are kind of wired pretty similarly, and I think guys want to find they want to see a wife who makes the effort.
Beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, though. And I've played this game, by the way, because I used to think a little bit more in the direction that you're talking about. And I would play a game and I'd be like, okay, universally beautiful woman, right? You attracted to somebody like this. And I've had men go, no, to models. Women that are
they don't like models.
Accepted as stunning human beings. That women also would agree. Yes, we agree. She's beautiful. They have said no. So beauty really is in the eyes of the beholder, and we're not all the same. Like you might be wired similarly, which is, yes, we find X, Y, and Z attractive or someone or something attractive, but what you find attractive and what 27 other people find attractive are not the same thing, and thank God, because then you could find your person and they can find their person, and everybody has something slightly different that they want or that they need. Yes, we all need attractive, but the definition of attractive is wildly different among people.
Okay, look, I'm glad you're arguing with me, and please continue to. Okay, now what I'm talking about is personal hygiene.
I don't know if that's
I'm talking about personal hygiene. Is there room for bad breath? I believe there's no excuse for bad breath. What?
It's not my favorite, but some people lost their sense of smell in COVID, so it doesn't bother them.
My gosh, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, she's the world's best matchmaker. Right there, you heard it first. Because I would have been like, you got to get that fixed. Take a pill.
Like, I got an idea. He's got body odor and she can't smell. Woo! Let's make a match.
That is very, very optimistic, and that is why I hope you're making big money. Okay. So here's a good question. And I say this all the time to people. The only person I completely agree with is myself. To the right of me, they're fascists. To the left, they're communists. Do we need to compromise? I think everyone's a package. And as you said earlier, as we go through life and we're working on improving our mitos, our personality traits, we're working on them. We're all at a stage and we're trying to, and what's great, what I love about a relationship, see, I'm turning this into all about me now, but that's okay. What I love about a particularly new relationship is they are a reflection of you. You get to see like an honest mirror back, because sometimes people in their innocence say, oh, and they make a comment on like what you do or what you, and you go, gosh, that's the way I'm being perceived. And it's very interesting. And I actually, my wife did that to me just the last couple of days. And I learn a lot when she says that kind of stuff, because I'm not aware of what's going on. And I love it. And it's great. But anyway, does everyone have compromise? I'm done with my alternate speech.
So the word compromise starts to make people very uncomfortable, because I want what I want and I want what's a match for me. What I talk about is that we are going to get different things in our package. We're going to get the good, which is what we want, and we're going to get the other, which is what we don't prefer. I don't like to call it bad because it's not bad. It's just not what I prefer.
It's just not what you prefer, right? Okay.
Not what I prefer.
Oh, fair enough.
So you get good. Now the question is about how much good do you need to get and how much other do you need to take along the road with you. So kind of like a suitcase that you're schlepping, through the airport. You got all the essentials, and then you got some of the extras, right?
Right.
That you just need, but you wish they didn't bog you down. We need at least 70%, at least, or more, that's good. That's in alignment with who we are, with what we want, with what our values are, that doesn't trigger us to our core that we can't handle. And somewhere between 10, 20, 30% of other stuff comes along. How much of that other stuff comes along? It usually depends on how accepting I am of a human. If I am not super accepting, my other side, it's very narrow. So it's very hard to find somebody because I can't tolerate so much that's outside of my own box. If you are somebody who's accepting, you have a much wider range of what may work for you and what you can schlep along with you on that ride.
And that brings up something else that you should, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, everyone should try. Let me give you an analogy before I say it, because this might explain it better. There are cells in your body that have receptors, and they attach themselves to other things going by. For instance, in your liver, there are cells that catch the cholesterol, and they bring it out of your body. And if you have high cholesterol, these cells are a little bit lazy, and they give you drugs to stimulate them. In a sense, there are certain common things that I think a lot of people like. Like I said, good hygiene, dress reasonably, don't dress too crazy, that will make yourself more acceptable to more people. Do you think it is, I encourage my friends who are single to try and be as mainstream as you can before you go out or when you go out in the dating pool. Don't, it's just going to increase your odds. Do you have a feeling on that? Or
Yeah, it's not my favorite. You and I are going to have a lovely disagreeable
this is
conversation.
Great. No, it's good. So you're like...
I don't usually disagree so often with so many people.
No, it's good.
Very different opinions.
Like, whatever you are, I'm just going to match you the way you are with someone else.
Well, I want you to be the best version of yourself. So whatever that essence is of who you are, I want you to be the best version of yourself. And I don't want you to be acceptable to the general public because you're not marrying the general public. We need to narrow it down, and we actually need to not increase our options, but decrease our options so that we can get through the process a little bit more gracefully. So if I made myself so acceptable to so many people, right, I might have hundreds of options. Besides having analysis paralysis, I'm going to be exhausted and I'm going to hit burnout. And how many of those people are really acceptable to me? Because even though I made myself much more broad, that's not how I really feel inside. Inside, I really have preferences. So, and I want my preferences to be met. So there's a range, like if you're open to everybody, you're really open to nobody. And if you're so narrow and so close-minded, we have a problem because you're only looking for a carbon copy of you, and that doesn't exist. So we need something in the middle where I'm open to stretching beyond where I'm at, but I'm clearly defined as who I am so that you, my other person, can find me. Because the more clear I am about me, the more clear when you see me, you'll know that this is a match for you. When you go out with a friend and they're like, oh, where do you want to go to eat? And you're like, oh, wherever you want to go. And what do you want to do? No, whatever you want to do. Like, they have no preferences. First of all, they're boring. Second of all, like, great, we get to do everything I want, but I know nothing about you. I don't feel any attachment or connection to you. I don't feel any draw. It's actually completely not appealing when you don't really show up. Now, if you're so opinionated that no matter what we pick and what we do, it's always wrong, I'm always wrong, the situation's always wrong, nothing can ever work, that's just miserable. So
I see what you're saying. There's a fine line between being in other words, insert your personality, be who you're going to be. Don't be, of course,
and be a great human. Be accommodating. Like, hey, what do you want to do? Oh my gosh, I'd love to go for ice cream. And they're like, oh, I'm diabetic. You're like, oh, so sorry. Let's go for a walk, and we'll grab a snack along the way that's diabetic friendly, right? So we don't want to be like, oh, well, sorry, tough for you. I'm going to get ice cream. That's not a very nice or humanly thing to do. We want to be accommodating, but we want to share parts of who we are because then they learn, the next time you go out, if you did end up getting ice cream, right? They're like, mint chocolate chip, right? I know, that's your favorite. Okay, come on, let's go. I got a good new place for you, right? And then they can lean into what you like. They can build the relationship, build the connection. And it's fascinating, and well, you know me, you feel connected to me, and I feel connected to you, and you understand me because I shared that, not just because I'm very vanilla and neutral about everything.
Right. I don't know, there's a mic here. Because you said that, there's another essay in the book by Iddy Kay, and she's a huge educator within Chabad, which is a religious Jewish women's organization. And it's the most romantic thing I've ever read. Okay, here we go, if it's cool with you.
I'm ready.
Okay. She says, and this is the middle of her essay. It says, the best use of intelligence once married is to study each other. Discover your partner's virtues, learn their desires, wishes, and strengths. Understand their fears, pains, insecurities, study the details, great and small, then make them your unique and wonderful match during this lifetime. Seek to uncover more and get closer every day. If after years of marriage you love your spouse as on the wedding day, how terrible! The longer you know each other, the stronger your love should grow. Now that's using your mind. In other words, each day as you get to know them better, you love them more and more. In other words, each day I wake up, I need to find out more about my wife. And if I have that attitude, how great is that? So I thought that was very romantic. Now, she did this in the context of God, and she tied it in. And if you want to know the essay, buy the book.
I have it, and I was reading through it this weekend.
Oh, did you? Did you have any favorite essays? Any that jumped out at you, or?
No, you know what I found interesting? I actually went in order, and I started just from the beginning of the book going through. But what I found really unique is that there's so many different types of people that wrote essays. You know, you have people coming from a science angle, and people coming from a, public or professional personality and celebrity angle, people coming from logic and reason. And it's just, to me, I read about 10, the first 10 essays or so. And I was like, wow, there's such a variety of thought, and it's all coming, like the proofs are all coming from different angles. You're like, that makes sense. Oh, that was good. Oh, that also makes sense. Oh, that was really good. Each one,
yeah.
I couldn't pull myself away, from it. I was just so engaged.
Yeah. We wrote this book, or we edited this book because, I don't know, anyone who's in fact, we should ask you, did you have faith naturally? How did you come about it? I mean, how did you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I grew up Jewish, and I grew up conservative, secular, in not an observant home. And in my mid-20s, I leaned into my observance more. And I think that I came from, I would call it like a God-believing home, or at least my mom was more that way.
Yeah.
And then midway through, I was like, well, if I believe in God, then I should probably know what God wants from me. And I should probably do some of those things. Like, that might make sense. If I'm on board with the concept of God, I should be on board with the reality of God. And that's when I started to dig a little bit deeper into my Judaism, look into kind of like, what is God all about? Unity and oneness, and elevating this world, making it, a better place. And that's when I started to lean into it more. But I think that I was raised with a God consciousness. We weren't exactly sure where it fit in our lives, because it wasn't attached initially to our religious beliefs. It wasn't in alignment with those types of things.
Well, that's more than I had.
It was a very soft sell for me, so to speak. Like,
I'm sorry, where what?
Like, it was a soft sell. Like, it made, like, even if I didn't grow up with having regular things go on, it was like, but of course there's a God. Like that the world would spontaneously come into creation,
right,
and everything would be just so that it actually worked and it made sense, instead of like, boom, dying. Like, right. Because when I plant a garden, that it just magically works. It doesn't magically work. Yeah. It dies. Yeah. It mostly dies. And sometimes you're lucky if you figure it out, the keys to success, and you can get it to make it work. Like, it takes miraculous circumstances to bring all of these things together into creation to make a living, breathing, talking human that can think and feel, and that the body is functioning on its own every single day. That's an accident. Like, accidents don't happen so well. Like, they're not that good.
That's right. I think one of the authors put it this way. He said, it's kind of like you have a tornado that goes through a junkyard, and just by accident, it assembles a 747.
Right.
Gassed and ready, on, with electricity running through it, ready to go on the tarmac. And the 747 is a very simple machine compared to, say, the human eye, which is so complicated.
Right.
Bruce, my co-editor, he has a son who's an anesthesiologist, and he asked him one time. He said, Bruce asked his son. He said, Brian, he goes, do you guys know why anesthesia works? And Brian says, we have no idea. He says, what? You don't know why it works? He goes, no, we don't. He goes, we know it works, but we don't know why it works. We just know that. And when you start digging in and find out, your eyes open. It's kind of like, those Escher prints where you can look at them two ways and you don't see something, and then you look at it long enough and finally go, I see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you realize every second of every day, the Almighty, and if you think subatomic particles, as Manus Friedman says, is what is responsible, then your God is subatomic particles. But every second, they can't explain why the universe is expanding at a faster and faster rate, because it defies all the laws of physics. Usually when you throw something, it slows down over time, right? The proofs that these guys brought go on and on. There's one by a chemist named Dan Levy, who's a disease-curing scientist. I actually asked, he is curing diseases every day. Went to MIT, brilliant guy. And he said, he started to explain to me the odds. So the other argument is, it happens random.
Right.
But all the scientists know this that are in biology now. They know that the chances, it's like computer code. If you throw together computer code randomly, it's a bunch of junk. It has to be, in fact, we all know that sending a stupid email, if you miss one dot, it doesn't arrive at its destination. He said, the human genome is the same way. It has to be exact. Yeah. And when you just look at, you could do this high school math, this times this, so many DNA chains, so many things to get something that works. The rest of it's junk. He said, it's like pulling one water molecule out of all the oceans in the world would be the odds of just chance code that works. And then later he came and said, well, that was even too high odds. He said, it's really like pulling one molecule out of the entire universe. In other words, there's just no chance.
Right, it's not possible.
There is hope, though, but there's no chance. We just went through this already. So here's another question. My wife, I'm going to admit, she says, you should ask, how do you keep the flame alive? Do you deal with that at all? Is this out of your pay grade? Because you can say,
no,
you're married, I'm married.
Huh? Yeah. Married for over 21 years. And I think that keeping the flame alive in dating as well as in marriage, there's differences, but there's some things that overlap. And one of the big things is a sense of curiosity. At the minute that you really don't want to know anymore, you don't care to know anymore, you don't care, you stop being curious about the other person, right, and you stop being curious about your relationship, there really is no relationship. People, I wonder what would be with this one over here, and their eyes start to wonder, and they start having curiosity elsewhere. That kills a relationship. But as long as we have curiosity within our own relationship and within the other person, then there's still a possibility for this relationship to grow and to deepen over time.
Which is why I read Eddie's essay, because if you're every day waking up saying, what is it I don't know about this person that I can get to know better right now, that I have no idea, and you're just on the hunt, about what's motivating them, just you make them a subject of your, and I have to tell you that I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, we've disagreed, that leads to much better romance too, because as you know them, and you get to know them and they're your project, it really is very romantic. I mean, the physical becomes almost not important at all. I don't see the physical as even playing a part of it. I think
that should get better over time too. Tell your wife to call me.
No. The physical does get better. But what I'm saying is, it's driven by, I know you've read this in every magazine. Oh, it's what you do during the day that makes good romance at night. Right. And it's. I'm finally realizing it's true. It's really how you interact. Right. We already talked about motivated. Right. I also asked, because before this asked my wife, what should I ask? Because, I'd like to get her opinion. But she said you have to have respect for the other person. And I completely agree with this. What do you think?
I agree that you have to have respect. And the question is, in what area? So meaning, it's not just that I look at you and I go, wow, you're an amazing human. I respect you, right? I can look because not everything will we respect about other people. We might appreciate it. We might like it. We might not like it. There might be things about you that I don't like. There should be things about every human being in this world that I don't like, myself included. That's what motivates us to shift and change and grow within ourselves. And it's what also draws us in or out of being in connection with somebody. But in terms of respect, you need to find things that you respect, right? It's not like either I respect you or I don't. It's not black and white to me, right? Like, oh, you're a respectable person. No, that action, what you did, how you helped this person, that was respectable. When the way that you treat your employees, wow, I really respect that. How you responded to me, I respect that, right? So again, it's the behaviors, it's the actions, it's what makes you you that I respect and I appreciate and I value. And when somebody does something that you don't respect or you don't value, it's not like, again, black or white. Wow, I respected you and now I totally don't. Okay, we all make mistakes. So this thing that I did, this wasn't in alignment with your values. So you don't respect me for that. But it's not that you don't respect me. It's that aspect that you don't respect, but we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can still look at everything and go, but overall, I respect it.
And it also gives you the opportunity, if you do something that your partner doesn't like, to how you recover from that. I think it gives them a real message. I mean, you can say, look, yeah, that was, apologies. I'll take it all back. That was bad, whatever. And that shows, I'm still working on this. I'm not perfect,
Right.
That shows them, and, hey, everyone's going to go, yeah, you're right. I'm not perfect either. We can move on.
I think recovering something that you're mentioning, though, bouncing back from a downturn, I think more important than all the up times and the good times that we have and banking those memories, they're going to be there. That's good. That's easy. What's really important is that we know how to bounce back from when we hit a down and that we know how to come back. Like a couple that gets together and they have a relationship and they're like, no, we never fight. And I was like, okay, don't get married. And they're like, what? I'm like, you need to fight, right?
Yeah.
There's very rare exceptions, like maybe 1% of couples really don't have that. And usually second time round, not first marriages. Usually second marriages can have that because you could find somebody more in alignment instead of somebody that challenges you more.
Oh, I see.
But we need to have.
What you're saying, just to clarify what you're saying is,
Yeah.
on a second marriage, if they don't fight, it's not that big of a deal. Is that what you're saying?
It's more common that they're going to be in alignment potentially with less friction. First time marriages, there's an amount of stuff that you got to work out. Usually it's more rare to see couples that are just so in sync, they never fight and nothing's wrong. And it's not normal not to fight. Like there should be an amount of things that we have disagreements on, right? Like you and I, we didn't agree on everything that we spoke about so far. Who cares? We're having a conversation. Right. There's banter. Right. There's back and forth. It's interesting. It's, like you said, it helps you to expand your mind when somebody has a different opinion or something else to say.
Right. You just described my first marriage. We never fought. It was just, I don't want to say this. My children are going to watch, but they knew. When is it over? When's a relationship done? I'll first give you my opinion. I think I heard this. I don't think it's original. I think when there's contempt, I think you should hang it up. Your thoughts?
So when is a relationship done and when is a marriage done are going to be two different conversations. So when is a marriage done? By me, you should have done every single thing under the sun and then looked a little bit further and really tried. You came together. We brought a couple together for a reason. You picked each other. You chose to get married. We built something. Great. It takes time to build something. It should also take time to tear it apart. Outside of things like abuse, addiction, or really difficult situations. I'm not speaking about a dangerous situation, in which case get out immediately.
Right.
But in terms of tearing a relationship apart, it sometimes needs to be done. It's just the way of the world. There's not always the ability to make it work. But I'd love for both sides to try everything to fix it. If it can't be fixed, separate, but at least we've both learned something. And then we go into a new relationship in a different way where we have a greater sense of self and understanding of other. And also where you can walk away and hopefully it's not horrible, but even just agree to disagree, right? This just doesn't work for us. We really tried everything to fix it and to work through it. But I hold marriage very high. I think that we live in a very disposable society. Everything from like the pen that we write with to the phone that we use, it's done. 6 months, 2 years, whatever it is, everybody's trading in for the next one. So I'm not a super big fan of trading up. Like in marriage, I'm not looking to trade up models unless there's a problem, unless it doesn't work. But when I say a problem that's not solvable, again, a couple should fall and they should be able to get back up. They should fall, they should get back up. They should learn something from that. When they fall the next time, it should be a different fall, right? Because they're not going to fall doing the same stuff, and then they can pick themselves back up. But it's when we can't pick ourselves back up anymore that and usually one or both sides kind of give up, and they're like waving the flag, like, bail me out. I can't do this. It's not working.
Yeah. That is, again, assuming that both want a relationship. They have to want it. If one of them doesn't want it, you're done. I mean,
if both of them don't want it, you're done. If one of them doesn't want it, they can be nurtured back in.
What if they were never in?
Well,
and when I say that,
well, no, right.
Let's say people get married. I mean, actually, probably in the Jewish world with this matchmakers, they don't know each. And by the way, this is for Jew or Gentile. This conversation, I hope you're all enjoying. But in the Jewish community, there's people like Alisa who set up, and they know each other for a month, 2 months. They have a few meetings. I mean, they're not necessarily, and like you said on one of your things, or you said you said it now again. You make your soulmate. In other words, you every day, right, like we've been telling, you're working on it, and you're going, gosh, I love it when she does that, she's so neat. She did that. It was just incredible, and I like her that much better today than I did yesterday. But and
not always are you going to have those days. Like, it's okay that
right,
we fall in a relationship, but that we
sure,
know how to pick ourselves back up.
Right. There's another axiom of Judaism which says that everything that happens, the Almighty is in control of, including possibly first marriages that maybe don't work out. Maybe I was just studying the King David, the story of David and Goliath. The story, it's Tanakh. It's the story of David. He had relations with a woman named Bathsheba. She was technically divorced, but because her husband went to the war, and they always did a divorce in case they died. But the point is, it wasn't a real cool thing to do to have relations with someone's wife while he's at war. On the other hand, little King Solomon came out of that union. So in a sense, the Almighty had a plan, even though it wasn't, so palatable to most of the commentators of what he did by sleeping with this other woman. So, and I think there is something to that. I think sometimes maybe you get married, maybe the marriage doesn't work, but those children, maybe it's the line of the Mashiach. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of the Jewish community. Maybe that's the line. Do you have any?
I think, there. Just one thing that it makes my brain hurt a little bit is, on one hand, we believe that God has a hand in everything that we're doing, and it's divinely inspired, and kind of it's supposed to be the way that it is. And on the other hand, we are also given free will. So we're not robots, right? Where you don't have the free will to do what you want to do, right? You come to a fork in the road, you can go left or you can go right. You have free will to choose. Right is the right path, but you chose left. Okay, right? But this is where it makes my brain hurt, right? Even though you had your free will, you chose left, right? There's divine inspiration and divine assistance in the way that you go also.
Whichever way you choose.
In the way that a man wants to go, and that way he'll be led, right? So
that's true.
So
he'll help you do whatever it is you want to do. Right. The Almighty. Right. That's true.
Right. So it does. But we do have free will. So it's not just we come into this world and whatever God wants. Okay, I guess I'll just play the guessing game of what does God want. We're given a brain. We're given a heart. We're supposed to be a human living, breathing within this world, and use our free will and our consciousness to live in it the best that we can, and to make the best life that we can. And then at the same time, what happens is divinely inspired.
I guess I'm just trying to if you've been divorced, or if that's the way you're going through, I just want you to feel a bit better that, there might be a grand plan to this whole thing that you don't know about. And that's one of the things when you become a little more religious, or you start acknowledging that you're not the creator. That's all you have to do is say, are you God? No, I'm not. Okay, someone else is running this because it's too orchestrated, like we discussed earlier.
Correct.
But you know what? There might be something that you don't know. There was, there's all kinds of stories, of course, we have in our literature that shows a grandmother praying for her offspring. Her great grandson might do something that she prayed for a long time ago. We don't know things. It's really quite a mystery. We know a lot of things, but we don't know everything. In fact, I love the scientists. I saw him once. This astronomer. She was this woman who said, she goes, we know a lot about this much of the universe. This little thing, we have a pretty good handle on it. He goes, the rest, we really don't know what's going on. And I loved it because she had some humility. It's like, because everyone's like, it's the science. Yeah. It's the science. Right. It's like, it is anyway, we don't have to go down that road. What do you say to moms who have adult children that are dating?
It's an interesting question because, first of all, how old are they? How much do they want your support?
Let's say they're in their 20s. Let's say they're in their 20s. Yeah.
And how receptive are they? So there's some 20-year-olds that are like, set me up, go ahead, make my life easy. Right. And other ones that are like, get out of my life, I'm not interested.
Is that a new thing? I'm reading that some kids who've done their own dating are coming back to saying, no, you set me up because I'm failing miserably at this. And I think it's pretty wise, actually.
I think it's cyclical. I think that it comes and it goes. It is my preference that everybody is a volunteer matchmaker in the whole world. We call it like a mitzvah matchmaker, like a good deed kind of thing.
Right.
Everybody knows somebody that's single. Everybody knows somebody that's potentially looking for somebody. You have to, within your family, within your community, within your work. Everybody knows somebody, at least one person. Many people know multiple people, whether somebody never got married, they got divorced, widowed, right? There's so many different ways that somebody enters back into looking for their soulmate that we all know somebody. And I think that we all have an obligation to support one another and make what I would call a match suggestion either once a month, once a week, however much you can tolerate. You'll probably get a no, and that's fine. But if you make dozens of suggestions, somebody eventually will say yes, and somebody will eventually find somebody. I have a story that a cousin of mine told me. He said there was a woman, and one of her, I think it was friends or family members, said, oh, let me set you up. And she's like, okay. So she went out with him, and she's like, well, I don't know, maybe. She happened to watch my show. One of my popular pieces of advice is date them till you hate them.
Date them till you hate them. Yeah.
Date them till you hate them. It's also in the book. I put it in as a whole chapter in the book also.
I'm with you on that. You have to,
Okay. Yeah. So she goes out with him once, and she's thinking, I'm not going to go out with him again. And then she goes, Alisa said date him till you hate him. I mean, I don't hate him. I don't think I want to marry him, but I don't hate him. She's like, I'll go out with him again. 2 dates, 3 dates, 5 dates. They've been going out since like April, and it's summer already. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're still dating. So I got the update. Yep, they're dating. Now they're going on vacation together and everything's working. And she's like, I tell everybody, you take Alisa's advice. It's good advice. It works.
Yeah.
So
did you cash your check? I mean, you get a fee for this, right? That's the main thing. It's like, okay.
She just watched the show. She just watched the show.
Okay.
Yeah, she watched the show. Okay. She took the advice. And this is what I love. I love that when you put wisdom into the world, it can just do its magic. You don't need me to do it. Like, I put what I know out there, and somebody can grab onto it, take it, use it to their greatest good. It doesn't. What's the payback? There's no payback. Pay it forward. Go tell somebody else. Go help somebody else. And it was only because somebody made a match suggestion to her, a friend. She didn't go through a matchmaker, but she did, because everybody has the ability to be a matchmaker.
Right.
It was really special.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like our tikkun olam, and I hate to use that term, but you wake up, you see garbage on the, pick it up, do something good. You're not here to be served. You're here to serve. What do you want to be?
Right.
Do you want to be needy, or do you want to be needed? See, I have all the lines. I've been interviewing Manus Friedman.
You're good.
I'm just collecting them as I go along.
It's good. It's very good.
So what else? What else do you want to talk about? Oh, I think a great predictor. This is my theory.
Okay.
I think a great predictor in the United States, and I can't speak to any other country, is the educational level you have. And actually, it goes down to the institutions, because we have a very refined pecking order of universities. We have this, the junior colleges, we have the state colleges, we have the UCs, and after the UCs, I suppose you're up to the Ivy League Ivy League. And then you have the character within each, the culture within each. For instance, they have a different culture at UC Davis, University of California, Davis, than they do at UCLA, okay? And I don't know if it's the registrars or whoever decides that knows what culture is going to fit, but they pick out this certain type of person. When you walk around campus, they're all kind of that person. And I really think that's a really, really big predictor of that. I think people want to find someone sort of on that same level, wherever it is. What do you think?
People are looking for similarities. They say, oh, opposites attract. They attract, but the more opposite you are, the harder it is to live an integrated life together.
Okay.
And having more similarities makes life a little bit smoother and a little bit more enjoyable. So I think that one of my favorite places for people to meet is definitely on a university campus. I tell people, I tell all the singles, I'm like, listen, you'll get a degree. Everybody graduates, you get your degree, but you might not walk away with your person, and you might never find your person if you don't find them here. So don't leave school until you find your person. And if you don't find them, go get another degree. Go get a higher degree. Don't tell your parents.
I said to him, I think I said it to my kids, I say, you're never going to find a group of compatibility as you are right now. So look around. Right. This is the best pool you're going to get, because when you go in the workforce, you got, everyone from all these other
there's
places.
Too much variety. There's not enough similarity. The university campus is one of the best places to meet for a young person. So sorry, yay to the universities. You can hire me, because I'll tell people to keep getting a degree. I tell them, like, you're going to get the letters after your name, but I want them before, ladies. The MRS, that's what I care
MRS,
about.
That's what you want.
Not so popular 50 years ago, but it's what needs to be popular today.
Absolutely. When I think about it, I mean, I was in a fraternity, and all the sorority girls, it's like, take your pick. They all were pretty similar. I mean, in terms of educational level, our values, I think we're all pretty much the same. We were all kind of like non-Orthodox Jews, I would say, because I wasn't in that crowd. But it would have been very easy to be with any of them. Speaking of that, okay, I'm going to say the word. I'm going to say the P word. Do people have to agree on politics?
I don't know. 20 years ago, no. Today, politics aren't politics. Politics are beliefs today. Politics,
right. It's a religion, right? It's a religious
it's just
tribe, or whatever you want to call it.
It's invaded every part of my belief system of who I am. Often is now tied to somebody's politics. And what it means is, it's not that politics matter, but it's a good indicator if somebody's going to be more or less compatible with you. So if the politics are in alignment, we're going to have more things to agree on rather than not. So it's sadly, because it's a little bit annoying, but maybe it's also really helpful that it is an indication of compatibility, and that's helpful whenever we can find something that's an indication, but a strong indication of compatibility. So it goes like this. If you're on the left, really on the left, find somebody on the left. If you're on the right, far to the right, find somebody on the right. If you're somewhere in the middle, as long as you have tolerance to lean one way or the other and tolerate either extreme, you could be with either side, because there's a lot of people that are like, look, I don't care. Politics are politics. I'm not involved, right, and I'm just going to live my life. So the people that are on polar opposites and on either end, they need to find somebody that's like-minded, and the middle people can, check out either party.
Okay, and I assume it's the same. It's like the same thing as far as religious observance. In other words, in the Jewish world, we have completely secular on one side, we have the completely observant, I suppose, on the other. And so you want to find someone kind of in the same ballpark, yeah?
Yes, and there is this middle traditional ballpark where they could step up to do a little more. I don't even want to say up. They could step one way to do a little more. They could step the other way to do a little bit less. And they have a little bit of flexibility. Sometimes I call this flexidox in Judaism, where they're like flexible with their observance level.
Yeah.
That's
they're kind of bi-curious. I might go to the Orthodox shul and see what's happening. Actually, I have
and they're not turned off. Like,
yeah.
I had a woman who was secular, And then she's like, but I like my Judaism. I said, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes she went to an Orthodox shul, but she wasn't Orthodox. She goes, but I don't care. That doesn't bother me. I said, okay, good. And I want to do my thing. Friday night, I want to go to the synagogue and the temple. And on Saturday day, I'm going to go to the mall. I'm not going to temple again.
Right.
I said, okay. I said, you need to find like a British guy who also has this traditional value where like I value my Judaism, I value my synagogue, but like it's not that I center everything around it that's in that same boat. And wouldn't you know, that's who she married. She married a British
Really?
guy. And it
No
worked
kidding.
out.
Amazing you
It
called
did.
that. But I think what you were
Yeah.
saying is go outside of America, because outside of America, I don't think they have the reform movement, do they? It's not a thing. So
It's not super popular, right?
Right.
There's
So
there's traditional or like completely unaffiliated, but mostly a lot of Europeans are very traditional minded. They know about it. They have a level of practice here and there, even if they're not strictly Orthodox. Yes, they're in the middle ground.
Right. They haven't. Right. Exactly. I have another theory I want to run by you, and this is something that is really weird, and I'm going to run it by you and then see what you say. I believe that people are attracted, and this is maybe part of the providential hand in the soup that's being put in there, or the spices that have been put up there, that certain people meet for certain subconscious reasons, and they're not even aware of it. This is all below the surface. Two people meet, who knows why, they really like each other. And later, years and years later, you find out stuff that you had in common. For instance, and these are the things that I'm finding at work. Kids that had tough childhood, orphans, kids who had parents that had very dysfunctional parenting. I find that these people find each other and that they take care of each other as if God said to them. I mean, they didn't even say to them consciously. Like I said, they just go and they do it. I know I have friends, and we find out later, I'm there taking care of whatever they need. I'm their guardian angel and we find out later they didn't have a dad, or, it's like, I'm here to take care of it. Don't worry. I got your back. And that's what I'm seeing that happened with my, well, I'm not going to get into too much personal stuff, but it's very real, and this is happening. So have you run into that?
Yeah. Yes. And I do think
You
that's also
have.
very,
You're not going to disagree with me on this.
not going to disagree with you.
Wow.
There's also a lot of psychological studies and different things that are done where we have these childhood wounds, traumas, and different things that we seek to heal in the world, and we often find or are drawn to people that have experienced that, and there's a certain level of, like you said, subconscious connection and understanding that's there. Yes, it's a very
It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Wow. What if we could bring that to the conscious level? In other words, I know this is going to sound weird, but people, call it like orphans and troubled upbringing, dating.
Yeah, not super popular. People don't like to be labeled in a group that isn't perceived positively. So if you would make a group of wealthy entrepreneurs who are living with 7+ figures, right? Everybody who's in that's going to want to be a part of it.
But there are AA meetings and stuff like that, and for everything, right?
Yes, and in dating, the other thing is some people will say, "Well, I grew up with that. I had that. I don't want somebody who has that. I want somebody who has something that will balance me out that isn't the same." So even if
I tried that the first time, my first marriage, it didn't work.
Right. So even if maybe it would be good for them to have somebody that matches, they might not desire it. And yes, sometimes we learn second time around.
They don't understand where you're coming from. They don't understand it.
Correct.
And that's a real lacking thing.
It's a disadvantage to the connection in the relationship.
Yeah, because it's kind of people who've been through a big trauma, whether it's a war or a Holocaust, boat people from Vietnam. I mean, the gal from North Korea who came over here. It's tough to have a match with someone like that, with someone who hasn't been through it. They don't know your experiences. And I think that's why probably a lot of Holocaust survivors married each other, because no one else could understand the horror that they had gone through.
Right. And the pain and the depth to which they live and understand the world. You can't share certain things when you've never seen it, heard it, understood it. It doesn't have to be an identical trauma. Right? It can be that you both had a trauma, and because you've been through trauma, you can understand the other person's trauma, even though they're not the same trauma. That also can work. Right. That's
but something at this
to match somebody with no trauma with somebody who has heavy trauma. It's a very difficult match. Very difficult.
That is really a good, folks, that is really a good thing to remember. If one person's been through, if there's a different level of trauma, be aware that the other person will never understand. I mean, that's something I would definitely, I know it makes it, this is like these are like transparencies we're putting on top of each other, like what
Right.
should be seen and what shouldn't be seen.
It's
Okay,
similar to losing a parent. Like people say, like once you've lost a parent, you're like, oh, you're in the club. Like you get it. You
oh,
don't get it until
yeah,
you get it,
you don't get it,
right?
right?
So,
Yeah, that's not that traumatic. I understand it's a thing, but I'm talking about
oh
like
no,
like
if you're
uh,
10 or 12 or
oh, when you're
15,
young, yeah, for sure. I thought
and
when you're older, yeah.
but it could potentially be at any age or stage. Like there can be trauma that's associated with something, or if it happens suddenly, if you didn't get to say goodbyes, if you ended on a fight, like there's always things that are there. And if you don't know if you've never been through something, you just don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I really think that's a thing that people who have been through it should be aware of and try and find someone who's had that if they can, and they'll get each other a lot better. Okay, here's another one for you. And please, if you got to cut this off, I understand, but this is such a fascinating topic. I'm going to go
Yeah.
on for a bit until you tell me I can stop. Okay, does dating experience help or hurt? Another word. I think it can. Second time around, I think it helps because, well, in my first marriage, I didn't date almost at all. Really, honestly, I didn't have much dating experience. And again, I'm not saying it was a failure because I got 2 great kids from it. But the question is, does it help? Because then you can say, oh, I've dated enough to know that you're my cup of tea. I don't need to look anymore because I have enough experience. But on the other hand, is there another hand?
If you gave me a choice, I'd
Yeah.
rather we have fewer dating experiences than more. The reason is that we are more likely to be traumatized from our dating experiences than to be empowered by them. And the trauma that we carry forward is just really difficult. So, the likelihood of you having a relationship and going, wow, that was so wonderful. You're not my person, but this is great. Now I can go on and learn something new and meet somebody else, right? As opposed to what comes from relationships that are challenged. So it's not my preference to have a lot of relationships because it just layers pain and hurt and suffering and broken hearts on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, until we're blessed to find our person.
Well, I wouldn't have answered it that way, but I'm glad you did.
We're not going to
Yeah.
answer many things the same way.
Yeah, I like you. Next time you come out here, we'll go out to dinner.
Banter,
Okay.
we can banter it out.
How is okay, so it's all about values, obviously, right? You got to have common values. We
Yes.
agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. How do you find them out? And I'm talking about, again, Jews, Gentiles. When you have a matchmaker, they do a lot of searching for you and they establish commonalities and they do the work for you, which is why you hire them. I met my wife on an online platform called OkCupid. And what was great about that is they'll keep asking you questions, 100, 200. As long as you keep answering, they keep going. And they ask you very personal ones, very probing ones. Have you done drugs? What kind of drugs? Do you have a tattoo? Do you have a piercing? And if so, where is it? And it's just a great way. There was a guy who wrote for like Men's Health magazine. He said, I love it when I see like a nose ring or something like that. He goes, because now I can move on. He goes, it's just, it's just like, okay, you made my job real easy. But what can people do to find out what values people have and kind of like sort through filters? These are filters. Filter through people so they don't waste a lot of time. Because it's a big job. If anyone doesn't know this, all of you know this, to find someone who you adore is a huge, 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 huge job. And I don't want to hear, well, I don't want to go through the work. Because if you don't want to go through the work, you don't want to meet someone. If you want to meet someone, you're going to have to do, like anything else in life, you have to work for it. Okay, my speech is done. Go ahead. How do you find common values? I want to read everything. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to tell you now what. But you see these people. Go ahead.
So in terms of soulmate clarity, because we talked about being like a soulmate clarity expert. So soulmate clarity is something I'm deeply passionate about. And values is on the list of things that we must have, even before we deal with any relationship fears, anything that bothers me about you. Those things are irrelevant if our values aren't aligned.
Okay.
We need our personality and our values to have a high alignment. So first I need to know, what are my values, right? I don't care about all of your values, to be honest.
Good.
All of your
Right.
values are your values. Good for you. But what
Right.
I want to know is, are the things that I value reflected in you? Do you have them? Because if you have them, we're going to have a higher level of compatibility. And if you don't have them, even though you have other great things about you, but you don't have what I value, it's not necessarily going to be something that works.
That is so funny you said that. I was in a relationship once, and I thought we were pretty compatible. And along the way, I tripped over something that this person didn't have that was really important to me. And I never put it out there. I didn't know. And this was like a deal killer.
Yep.
People that have, they got the one
Deal
issue
breaker.
voter, whether it's, abortion
Yep.
or the environment, whatever it is. It's like, oh,
Yep.
if they're not in
Yep.
that, I don't care if they, they want to, I don't care about anything else they do. But this was that one thing that I tripped over and was like, oh, I can't be with this person. It's just not going to
Yep.
work. But like you just said, I didn't take the inventory of myself.
Correct. We
You
don't
are
have to
so
check
smart.
their inventory. We have to check our inventory.
Our
I
inventory.
like a top 10 list, a juicy long list of the top 10 things that you really value and want. After 10, the truth is, it's not that it doesn't matter, but if you don't get your top 10, we don't care what's 11 through 15. Even if it satisfies you, it doesn't matter if 1 through 10 is not satisfying.
1 through
So
10.
we need 1 through 10 to have a degree of satisfaction there, like 80% plus satisfaction within those areas.
Right.
And if those things are met, then I'm looking at that. You might come with bonuses. You might have other values that you bring to the table that I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that. Ah, wow, I'm so happy that he has that. That's really great. And then those are bonuses, but we don't care about bonuses because bonuses are bonuses. I need my values first.
Right.
Bonuses only come with it if you buy it. Like come to the makeup counter, buy our thing. You get this bonus. Great. No, I just want the bonus. No, you can't have it. You have to buy the package. Buy this, right?
Right.
So like you have to buy into the person and then you can get those bonuses, but we need those values to be aligned and they need to be aligned towards me. Now you're going to have your own values, right? So each side of the couple has their own values. Those lists should look very different because what I value and what I want and what you value and you want are going to be different, but they should be in alignment with each other. So even though
Right.
my list is completely different, but you're in alignment, wow, that can work, and vice versa.
So they
Has to go
can't
both ways.
contradict each other. Right. In other words, they can work together. They don't conflict. But if they're head to head,
We don't compare value. So it's not my value list compared to your value list. It's my value list compared to you, how you match up with my list, and it's your value list compared to me. We're not comparing value lists.
No,
I
we're
don't
not.
care about the list. The lists have nothing to do with each other. It's just the person, whether they're in alignment with those things that I need in my relationship to build a life.
wow, that is so powerful. Everyone should make their list if you're single.
By the way, if you want, I'm just going to give a plug. But in
No, go ahead.
Matchmaker, in
Yeah.
addition to Date 'em Till You Hate 'em, Chapter 11 is all about soulmate clarity, which I'm obsessed with. I am obsessed with soulmate clarity. How do I know if this is the one? Because what do I don't need to date you if you're not going to be my human. And the quickest way for me to get to that answer is through a process of understanding who I am and who you are and where those compatibilities lie and where those differences lie.
Wow. Armed with your book, I can see how many great marriages and how many great children, more importantly, are going to come out of these marriages because it's all about
You're making millions of marriages.
all
and
these
building
great kids, all these
communities
Menschy
and
kids that come
families.
out. Mensch means a real good citizen, a real, citizen of the world kind of thing. Oh, here's another one. Again, stop me. I know we're running probably long, but Manis Friedman had this crazy. Rabbi Manis Friedman is probably the most watched rabbi on YouTube. He's amazing if you haven't checked him out. But he one time said, "Don't get married for love." He goes, "That's a terrible idea." This is how he talks. That's a terrible idea. And then I'm like, what is this guy up to? And you watch it, and pretty soon I'm sucked in. And he says, you say to a person, "I'm getting married on June 24th. I have the hall ready. I have the caterer ready to go. Are you going to be there? Do you want to get married?" Right? And although it's an extreme position, I think what he's trying to say is basically you're committed to marriage. And like I said, if you want to make marriage work, in most cases, if you're committed to marriage, you'll do whatever it takes. You're not going to be stubborn. You're going to say, "You want that? I'll like that," or whatever. When both parties do that, you get together. And you mentioned something. I heard one of your podcasts, and you said the same thing. You mentioned it's It's like a Jewish axiom, like it becomes true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You set the date, and then bingo, you're there. So, and
you
also
commit to each other for a lifetime. Like you commit to the process of we'll figure it out. You know, my husband and I early in marriage, we had a conflict and we had a problem, and I'm like miserable and a
you
mess.
had a conflict? Oh my gosh.
Right? 2 months in, and I'm like crying and a mess. And he's like, look, I don't know what's wrong, and I don't know when we're going to solve it. But like, we'll get through this. You, me, God, we got this. It's okay. And we're not going to have the solution today.
Right.
And I was like, and I'm like, okay. You know, like, I'm like, maybe we should cut our losses and get out. Maybe this is a bad idea. Marriage is too hard. Nobody told me how hard it's going to be. This is terrible. And he looked at me and he's like, oh. Like, no, I don't know what's wrong. Definitely don't know what's going on in your head, sweetheart. But like you, me, and God, we got this. We're gonna figure it out.
Right. You just brought up something that I think is really also very important. The wonderful thing about a later marriage, a longer marriage, a second marriage, for those who went through it, is you become a cumulatively, synergistically better decision maker as a team. In other words, you can throw anything at this team. It's like team, Ben Shalom. Team Ben Shalom, you could throw them all kinds of stuff, curveballs, hangers, fastballs down the middle at 101 miles an hour. And you know what? They're going to come out with a great qualitative decision almost in all the cases. And I know I'm noticing that now. It's like, you know what? I've been poor, I've been rich, I've been poor, I've been rich, whatever. I don't even care about that anymore. Whatever we had an RV, we were out on the road, getting flat tires in the middle of the desert. It's like, great, bring it on,
Right, we got this.
This is nothing,
Next challenge.
It's like, after a while, it's like, it's like, no, it's nothing. This other time, then I was in trouble. Right. This is nothing. This is, after a while, you go, there's nothing. You can figure out a way to figure out just about everything and actually turn the negative into a positive, which is another axiom of Judaism, by the way. Turn the curses into blessings. So talk about that.
So turning curses or turning challenges into blessings, I think, is exactly the viewpoint that a couple needs to take when they're in a relationship, right? Like, instead of saying, oh, why is this happening to me, right? With that dread, right? We look at that and we go, okay, so this is happening to me. It's not a made-up scenario. It's happening for a good reason. God's not here to torture me. I'm not here to torture myself. My spouse isn't torturing me. I wonder why this is happening, and I'm curious, what should I do about this, right? Like, to approach it with this eye of curiosity that can allow us to then move through it and go, okay, well, I sometimes tell my kids and my husband when we have a challenge, I'm like, what's 3 possible solutions? Give me like a realistic solution. Give me like a crazy, bizarre, like fall out of the sky, nutso solution, and give me another idea that you have. And it expands our thinking and it expands our hearts and it helps us to go, okay, let me just get out of my way for a minute. There's something going on. I've got to figure it out and let me try to take care of it. Or the other option is, we have this problem, we have this situation, we got something, and like my husband said, like, we're not solving it today. We're just going to live with it. John and Julie Gottman, Dr. John Gottman, talks about the fact that 69% of all of our problems we will never solve. Never. You'll never, ever fix it. So why are we going to even spend time trying to actually fix a problem? Why don't we just go, like my husband and I sometimes, I'm like, it's that thing. We're doing that thing. I'm like, I don't want to do that. He's like, okay, so if you don't want to be upset anymore, so laugh. I'm like, but nothing's funny. He goes, so tell a joke. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So then I learned something called I learned laughter yoga, by the way, which is when you just laugh, but without having a reason to laugh. It's
Isn't that the East Indian guy? There's some,
You just keep laughing, right?
Yeah, you just keep laughing, right?
It just shifts. It shifts everything. It shifts your brain. Your body doesn't know that you're just laughing without something being funny. It's still releasing good endorphins and all those good things that flow through you so that you can just pull yourself out of that mood. And it's not you. It's you as a couple. Pull you out of that mood and into your relationship, which is what we need to do sometimes.
Yeah. The laughing thing. I know they used to have laughing groups that started in India or something. And it was like everyone laughed, and it's actually there's a guy who's on a podcast. And I forget his name. But he's a big Hollywood producer. He's been producing stuff since like Dean Martin and all that, and Frank Sinatra. And he said when he met Goldie Hawn, she was a dancer. She wasn't meant to be an actress or anything like that. She was a dancer, and for some reason, he was interviewing her, and she didn't get something, and she started laughing. And he said, this laugh, like everyone in the room laughed. And he goes, you're hired. He goes, what are you going to do with her? Put her in front of the cameras. We don't care what she does. Just let her laugh, because when she laughs, she's going to crack up everyone. And she did. Goldie Hawn was like, she's like, ah. He said she was actually one of the bright.
By the way, she's one of my favorites.
Said, and this guy, he's 94, still goes to the office, and he said she was the brightest woman he ever met. Goldie Hawn, who was all ditzy and everything like that. But anyway, there is the thing about laughter. And I'm off the news this week completely. I just full disclosure, because it's nothing to laugh about. And I'm listening to this comedy stuff by Mark Schiff. It's called We Think It's Funny. It's a great podcast. A little plug from Mark there.
Okay.
Because if you just want just comedians talking about their life, their experiences, relationships, they talk about everything. How about that?
That's
okay.
Great. It's great. I'm going to listen.
Yeah, if you just want to lighten up and like take a week off from
so that's really also what couples need. Like, stop taking everything so personally, so intensely, so deeply, and so seriously, and lighten the mood to a level where you can live at functionally and healthfully and happily. That's really the best.
Well, that's probably a good place to, I'm going to say pause, because I'd love to have you back once I have come up with more questions, more theories of my own. So I want to thank you for doing that. Please, everyone, don't forget to get her book. Hold it up, please. That's coming out in December. Yes. December 3rd, I think it is.
Matchmaker by Aliza Ben Shalom. Matchmaker, find me a love that lasts. It is on sale now, coming out December 3rd.
December 3rd. You can pre-order on
Amazon.
Amazon.
Buy it now, and it's going to ship to you. It'll be like a surprise, like, ooh, present.
Yeah, it's really important to pre-order them, because the publisher and everyone bases a lot of their expectations. They do all this stuff based on. I'm now a publisher, so please pre-order it. Also, it comes in; it'll be such a nice surprise. And don't forget to check out the most amazing book in the world, Elevator Pitches for God. 70 one-page essays. We asked people to prove God, gave them only one page, 500 words. We asked movie stars, Maya Bialik, Alan Dershowitz, Dennis Prager, Larry Elder, presidential candidates, senators, Joe Lieberman, may his name be a blessing. And gosh knows a lot of really, 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 really smart people, smarter than we were, which is why we had them write this book or write the essay. We didn't do it. So anyway, thank you, Alisa, for being on, and I hope to talk to you soon.